Welcome, this is Wayne from Print Table. In this video we're just going to demonstrate some of the preparation work we're going to do on the supports. Now obviously it's an 8mm rod that we're going to be fitting into the supports, but what I tend to do on the STLs is they're not quite 8mm, because I want to make sure I get quite a nice smooth tight fitting for the rods to go in. I'm using a masonry drill bit, so an 8mm masonry drill bit as opposed to a standard drill bit, and that helps to make sure that I can bore the hole through and get a nice smooth finish on the inside. So just keep drilling those through and trying the rods in. Next we look at all the other little pieces that are going to fasten onto the supports, whether that be the bearing housing or whether it be the pulley wheel housing. And it's just basically making sure that the M3 bolt can pass through freely, ready for when we do all the final assembly. The holes may need to be threaded rather than just try and drive the M3 bolt straight the way through into the printed part. I like to start them off with an M3 threaded bit, so I will actually get the thread tool and drive that through to start the thread off, and that'll make it easier for the M3 bolts to be able to fasten in and should give me a nice tighter fitting. Also the grub screws will need to be fixed. This is where the Y-axis rods actually fasten through the support. I'll drill that through with a 1.5mm drill because I'm going to be using a M2 grub screw on either one of the Y-axis rods to hold them into place. So that's just sort of preparing the hole ready, and then I'll use the M2 thread tool just to start the thread off in there. Same again, just so the grub screw can fasten in nice and tight. Now one of the other reasons why I'm starting with M2 is if I do have any problems, then I can increase up to an M3 grub screw or even an M4 grub screw. So by starting with M2, what I found is the smaller the grub screw, the better it got against the rod, because the rod only being an 8mm rod. Obviously I want the grub screw to go in as nice and tight as possible, so I'll clean off any swarf, any bits of plastic which are left in the hole, just so I know that I can get that grub screw in nice and tight. And where necessary I'll obviously just re-thread. And say it's just to start that grub screw up and know that I'm getting it in there nice and tight. Now I'll come to obviously fitting some of the pieces in. I'm going to show you in this video that we're totally assembling the piece. So we're putting the grub screws in ready, and then we're going to pick up one of the housings, whether it be the bearing housings, depending on what piece it's for, and we're going to screw the M3 bolts in, just so we can check everything now for fit. Just clean up the work area before we continue. I wasn't happy with the M2 on there, so I've decided now to re-drill and increase them up to the M3 grub screw, just so you know, I can get a tight fit against the 8mm rod on the Y-axis. So just using the M3 thread tool now just to recut that thread so I've got the correct size. Okay, so now that size is cut, I'll screw in the M3 grub screws as opposed to the M2. Slide my rod in. Might need to put a bit of force, that's why I've just gone out of camera for a second just to check the fit, and then obviously I can tighten that grub screw up, and then that will secure the rod into place. It's this piece that also aids with the print table to help keep all the stability. So we're not just reliant on the IKEA lac table frame. The fact that the rods are also held in and with using the grub screws on the supports, that also all adds to the strength of the machine and keeping it square with all the jerk and all the vibration that obviously 3D printing brings.